If you've been studying for the介護福祉士国家試験, chances are you've encountered this. ICF, or the International Classification of Functioning, Disability, and Health, or in Japanese, Kokusai Seikatsuki no Bunrui. ICF is one of the many confusing and hard or difficult to understand concepts in the study of Kaigo here in Japan. In this video, I'm gonna try to help you easily understand ICF in a way that you can easily remember it whenever you encounter an exam question like this. Welcome back to NikkoVenture. I will not define ICF here. No, because chances are you have already encountered its definition in the internet or on one of your Kaigo books. But to put it simply, ICF is some sort of a tool that a caregiver or a nurse can use to get a clear picture of a person's functions and disabilities. And when I say functions, that includes a person's bodily function and that person's way of interacting with other people and interacting with the environment. And when I say disability, that's the lack or absence of those functions. You see, with ICF, a healthcare professional, caregiver, or a nurse can see a person like this. According to ICF, a human body or a human being's ability to function is composed of 6 components. The Kenko Jotai, the Shinriki no Kozo, the Katsudo, the Sanka, the Kankyo Inshi, and the Kojin Inshi. These 6 components are very important. Very important. Because most, if not all, exam questions about ICF will require a decent knowledge about these 6 components. You see, the usual type of exam question about ICF is a situational type of question. That means you have to read a paragraph in Japanese, and at the end, you will have to answer a question about what you understood from the situation you just read. And it is more than likely that the question will ask you which in the 6 components of ICF does the context of the situation you just read belongs to. I hope that made sense. Of course, you will have choices where you can choose your answers, but without fully understanding the 6 concepts or the 6 components of ICF, it might be difficult for you to answer a situational type of question about ICF. You don't believe me? Here's an example. This is the situation, and this is the question. Of course, you need to understand the situation to answer this question correctly. And of course, 4 of the 6 ICF components will be given here as your choices. But honestly speaking, even if you understood the situation perfectly and you will be given only 2 components of ICF as your choices, if you don't understand what even a single ICF component means, you will fail this question. You will lose points. Lesser points means lesser chance of passing the exam next year. And we don't want that, right? In other words, understanding perfectly the situation alone will never be enough when it comes to ICF exam questions. Don't worry, I'm here to help you. At least, I'm gonna try helping you. And the first thing we should do is to understand, really understand each component of ICF. So, Kenko Jotai has to do with all diseases and disorders. And I mean all. Remember this. If you encounter a disease or a disorder in the situation you are reading right now, there's a huge chance that that disorder or disease belongs to Kenko Jotai. The diseases or disorders in the situation will be written in Japanese, but do not worry if you cannot read those Japanese medical terms.
I don't understand, bitch. Don't understand. I don't.
Because most of these Japanese medical terms will be written with an English translation beside them. You don't understand the English translations as well? there's a trick to that. But remember, this trick that I'm about to tell you is not applicable to every questions in the exam. The trick is that when encountering English translations that end in itis, there's a huge chance that word is either a disease or a disorder. Examples of these words are always remember, diseases and disorders almost always belong to Kenko Jotai. Shinriki no Kozo has to do with all your physiological and psychological functions as well as all your body parts. When I say physiological functions, that means the many operations happening in your body that keep you alive, whether you can see it or not. Perfect example of a physiological function is breathing. You're breathing. You know that you're breathing right now because you're alive watching this video, but you cannot see what's happening inside your body as you breathe. When I say psychological functions, that's your mental functions. The many operations happening in your mind that may keep you sane or make you insane. Kozo is the structure of your body, your body parts.
Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
Remember this, if you encounter a normal or abnormal function in the situation you're reading in the exam, it's more than likely that function, abnormal or normal, belongs to Shinriki no Kozo. For example, Mr. A here had a stroke, and because of that, he was left with katamahi, or a paralysis on one side of the body. He also tends to feel depressed when things don't go as planned. The katamahi is a perfect example of a body structure, an abnormal body structure which belongs to Kozo. The kibun no ochikomi is a perfect example of a psychological function which belongs to Shinriki no. It doesn't matter if it is a normal or abnormal body function or body structure. As long as it is a body structure or body function, it always belongs to Shinriki no Kozo. Katsudo are the actions, tasks, and movements that you do alone. The keyword here is alone. All, and I mean all, actions, tasks, and movements that are done by a single person, just a single person, almost always belong to Katsudo. For example, Mr. A was able to walk again through rehabilitation. The word here is hoko, walking. Generally speaking, walking is an action or a movement of the body, and walking can be done alone.
Let me see you
Sanka has to do with participation. The keyword here is participation. But participation to what? Participation in a group, a community, or the participation to a society. Every time a person joins a group like a choir, a recreational activity, or a community program, that almost always belongs to Sanka. For example, Miss G here often does musical recreational activities. She participates in this sort of activity. The recreation de wa uta no banso belongs to Sanka. Kankyo inshi is complex. In English, it's the environmental factor. But kankyo inshi is not only limited to the environment. The keywords for kankyo inshi are everything that has something to do with these keywords most likely belongs to kankyo inshi. Your house, your neighborhood, and the surrounding areas will be your environment. If a person is using a fukushi yogu, that object belongs to kankyo inshi. If a person is under the care of a caregiver or a nurse, the relationship between that person and the caregiver or nurse belongs to kankyo inshi. The most common example of services is the kaigo service. So whenever you encounter a person in the given situation in the exam that uses some sort of a kaigo service, that word there belongs to kankyo inshi. To better understand Katsudo, Sanka, and Kankyo Inshi, picture a circle. Whatever that circle does, if it's doing it alone, that's Katsudo. If that circle goes to another circle or a group of circles, Sanka. If another circle or a group of circles comes to your circle, that's Kankyo Inshi. Last but certainly not the least, Kojin Inshi. Kojin Inshi has something to do with everything that belongs to the person in a given situation. And that includes many things. And I mean many things. Many things like age, gender, ethnicity, occupational background, educational background, family history, values, lifestyle, likes and dislikes, etc. Kojin Inshi might be overwhelming to understand for some, but the trick here is that if something doesn't belong to Kenko Jotai, doesn't belong to Shinriki no Kozo, if that something doesn't belong to Sanka nor Katsudo, if that something doesn't belong to Kankyo Inshi, there's a huge chance that something belongs to Kojin Inshi. That trick is basically a guess, but an intelligent guess. A guess that is based on your knowledge about the 6 components of ICF. And an intelligent guess will give you more chances of passing the exam next year compared to an ordinary guess. Can you see now why understanding the 6 components of ICF is very important to correctly answer a question about ICF in the exam? When you know or understand the 6 components of ICF by heart, any question about ICF in the exam will just basically be free points for you. Moving on. Situational questions about ICF are not the only type of ICF questions you will encounter in the exam. Some ICF questions in the exam may look like this. We are to select the choice that belongs to Kankyo Inshi and Shinshinki no Kozo. Denki stando is an object in your house, Kankyo Inshi. But dokusho or reading is an activity typically done alone, Katsudo. Kuromaisu is an object, Kankyo Inshi. But going to Bijutsukan is typically done alone. It's not stated here that you are accompanied by someone. So, an activity done alone is Katsudo. Choryoku ga teika is an impaired body function, Shinshinki no Kozo. However, communication might be Katsudo or Sanka. Sutoresu might be Kenko Jotai. Katsuryoko no teika is definitely Shinshinki no Kozo. Yukame no seijo ga yawarakai is your floor, Kankyo Inshi. Baransu in this context means your balanced bodily functions, Shinshinki no Kozo. In my opinion, caregivers here in Japan doesn't need to have a deep, very deep understanding of ICF. As ordinary caregivers in a typical Japanese nursing home, a basic knowledge about ICF will be enough. Unless you're planning to become a care manager or make Japanese caregiving your lifelong career. Otherwise, the only time in your life as a caregiver here in Japan where you're gonna need a strong understanding of ICF is when you're going to take the介護福祉士国家試験. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen, as long as you understood the 6 components of ICF by heart, any ICF questions will just be the easiest questions in the exam. So, if you really want to be a介護福祉士next year or the following year after that, I suggest to take ICF seriously. Put effort in understanding it and practice taking or answering ICF-related exam questions. So, that's everything I have to say about ICF, how to learn it, and how to easily remember it during the exam. From here, the rest will be up to you.